So now we finished reputation and we're going to talk about compounding. One of those big fancy words for investing, about how to get rich and stay richer. Compounding is when something multiplies unto itself. All right, so if I have $100 and it compounds at 10% a year, next year it'll be at $110. The year after that, I add 10% of this number, which is I'm 121, right? And then the next year, 133. And so forth. And so you notice that even though the time between these intervals remain the same, the actual amount that we're growing continues to rise proportionally to how much we have, which is how Uncle Warren can have $100 billion and still make another $15 billion this coming year, right? It's because he understands the power of compounding, and they call it the eighth wonder of the world. And in the last decade, Warren Buffett has made more money than he made over the rest of his career. And that's because the longer you do it, the better it gets. Which is why some of these early wealth building fundamentals are so important. Compounding only unlocks if you have a long-term perspective, because this early first 4 years, I mean, decent, but not bad. But if you do that over 30 years, it becomes unbelievable. And it's also why you have to not diversify, because if we were then splitting this up and saying, you know what, maybe I'm gonna stop this, we're interrupting the compounding process. And equity is one of the single greatest compounding vehicles because you can reallocate capital within the same vehicle, right? And a simple example of that would be like, if I have 10 locations and I can grow by 10% every month, then I go from 10 locations to 11 locations. The next month I get to 12 locations. Next month I get 13. And by my 20th month, I can open 2 locations, I get to 22, then 24. And it compounds because by that time, you'll have built out the infrastructure to sustain a faster pace. So Panda Express, they added 600 locations this year. They had 2,000 at the beginning of the year. That took them 45 years to get to. This is 1 year. They grew more in this 1 year than they did in any prior year before that. And that's why you just have to stick with it for a long period of time. And this is one of the things that people don't realize about restarting. When you go from year 10 to year 11, you might be incredibly bored with your business. But if you go from 100 million to 110 million, you grew by 10 million. And even though this new thing might sound more exciting in year 1, the likelihood you go from 0 to 10 million year 1 is really unlikely. And so this is where all of the compounding is unlocked, even though it's incredibly boring. But if there's one thing that can let you write down, boring is what makes you rich. One of my favorite quotes from Charlie Munger is that the money isn't made in the buy or the sell. It's made in the wait. And the wait is the hardest part because you have to sit with your hands in your pockets and decide that the original plan that you had was a good plan. And the hard part of the plan is sticking with the plan, not doing the plan. Like deciding that you're gonna work out isn't hard. Deciding that it's gonna be 3 days a week for the year isn't hard. It's continuing to do it for that entire time is what makes it hard. And I wanted to find a term for you that has been really helpful for me, which is patience, right? A lot of people are like, be patient, be patient. What does that actually mean? Being patient simply means figuring out what to do in the meantime. As I make this video, I'm being patient for my stocks that are growing right now. While I'm making this video, I'm being patient for the cup that I want to lose some fat. While I'm making this video right now, I'm being patient for some of our portfolio companies to capitalize on the reinvestments that we're making right now. But I'm making a video. And so what you have to do is that when you stick to the plan, sometimes the best thing you can do is ignore it and let it be, which means that you don't interrupt the compounding process. And there's a famous study that studied patience and impulse control, and there's one big learning that I think all of us can learn from. So there was a test called the marshmallow test. They took little kids and they put a marshmallow in front of them and they had to wait 30 minutes and then they could eat the marshmallow. Now if they ate the marshmallow during the 30 minutes, they didn't get a second marshmallow. If they were able to wait 30 minutes and not eat the marshmallow, then they would give them a second marshmallow at the end. So they got double the reward simply for waiting 30 minutes. Now what was interesting is that they studied the difference between the kids who couldn't resist and the ones who could. And obviously long term, they figured out that the people who could wait and delay gratifications are the ones who were more successful. But the strategies that they used to delay was not that they stared at the marshmallow and used their willpower. The kids who were successful did a number of different things. Some of them went to a different side of the room. They just distanced themselves from the marshmallow itself. Some of them started singing songs to themselves. Other of them took the marshmallow and put it in their pocket so they couldn't see it anymore. And so the big thing is that they had the skills to figure out what to do in the meantime. And so the more skilled you are, the more ways you can win. And that's why building skills is so important. And it's so important because it allows you to be patient. It gives you something to do in the meantime while you allow your master plan to come to fruition without thinking that you're smarter than you are to begin with.